Hello, and welcome to another episode of Legions Explained. Today's episode, White Scars. 5th Legiones Astartes, White Scars. The warriors of the 5th Legion were the pathfinders of the Great Crusade, ever forging a path through uncharted territory far beyond the borders of the expanding Imperium, and often forgotten by the chroniclers that followed in the conquest's wake. Organized into small, mobile units, the 5th Legion ran before the armies of the Emperor during the final conquest on Terra, and then across the stars, sowing confusion and death amongst their foes. They were the swift blade that probed for weakness before a sudden and deadly strike, not the sledgehammer that some of their brother legions had become. Theirs was the lightning that struck from clear skies and withdrew without a trace, leaving only ashes behind. The White Scars were often overlooked and considered the outcasts of the Legiones Astartes, operating so far from the Imperial core and being culturally so distinct from the Terran norm. Though alternatively disdained or unremembered by most, it would be the 5th Legion that would overturn the scales of destiny itself. Primogenitor, Jakatai Khan. Cognomen, Briar. Varies. Examples, the Pioneers, Star Hunters, Blood Debt, Vanguard, Grey Ghosts. Observed strategic tendencies, shock assault strikes, highly mobile hit-and-run campaigns, and extended unsupported operations within hostile domains. Noteworthy domains, Chagoras, Mundus Planus, Terra, the Colan Cluster, Allegiance, Fidelitas, Sindo. The Emperor's Vanguard. From their inception, the 5th Legion were held apart from their brothers, rarely being found in massed ranks amongst the assembled hosts of the Unification Wars. Yet they were one of the first legions to draw blood in the name of the Emperor, taken first from the technomadic tribes of the Thulian Basin, whose hardy stock had traversed those icy wastes in vast mechanized crawlers throughout the long years of the Age of Strife, and later from the wider stock of Terran recruits. The warriors of the 5th Legion were the Unification's eyes and ears. While some of the earliest legions were committed to the front lines of the initial conquest alongside the Emperor's Thunder Warriors, the 5th Legion was granted the solitary duty of seeking out the hidden fastnesses of the many gene-wrought demagogues and warlords that ruled the war-ravaged face of old Earth. Always they were pioneers, used in reconnaissance and sudden shock assault, and where they could not eliminate an enemy outright, they gathered information on the foe's strength and force disposition, acting as the vanguard for a reserve Imperial host. As the Emperor's war for galactic reconquest moved outward from Terra, the 5th Legion moved ahead the expeditionary fleets. For over half a century, the 5th Legion fought a lonely, piecemeal crusade, each of its companies separated by such distance that its flotillas slowly began to lose any sense of unity with their brethren. Each of these pioneer companies, their many acts of heroism beyond the leading edge of the Emperor's ever-expanding domain, garnered little praise or attention amongst the lords of the Imperium. There in the outer darkness, shorn of supply and reinforcement, was the basis of the White Scars' mastery of hit-and-run warfare, established by necessity, for they simply could not afford to engage in protracted wars of attrition. The Great Horde. The 5th Legion has never adhered closely to the structures of the Principia Bellicosa, a deviance which only grew under the command of the Great Khan. Lacking in the numbers that allowed many of the other legions to operate as fully fledged war hosts, the 5th Legion was originally organized into small pioneer companies, each operating as a separate, fully autonomous and independent force. This independence of operation and command was both a necessity due to the size mission of the early 5th Legion and a legacy of the fierce spirit of its original recruits. When the Great Khan took command of the Legion, he reformed these warriors into a number of flexible hordes, equivalent to groupings of numbers of chapters. These formations stood above the Brotherhood, or company level, in the Legion structure. In creating his new Legion, the Great Khan was careful to split up the old pioneer companies, mixing warriors of differing origins together with the new recruits from his homeworld of Chagorus to constitute the new hordes. The other main organizational unit within the White Scars, the Brotherhood, was a unit roughly equivalent to the standard company. Just like the larger hordes, each Brotherhood varied in size quite widely, with some being formed of less than a few hundred warriors, and others up to several thousand. Typical Brotherhoods were almost always mechanized cohorts, in that the entire force of the Brotherhood was either mounted on jetbikes or supplied with other forms of transport to enable rapid deployment and high-speed onslaught or pursuit operations. However, some specialized Brotherhoods comprised dedicated artillery trains and slower-moving vehicles of war, or lighter skirmishing and reconnaissance units, the Legion remaining a flexible force able to prosecute any form of warfare. Most Brotherhoods also included what the White Scars referred to as a Keshik, which indicated a body of troops somewhere between a lifeguard for the Khan and an elite reserve intended to bolster both the fighting spirit and tactical firepower of the line troops. Given the overtly aggressive nature of most White Scars tactics, these units often formed the forefront of any assault, and most often contained the most skilled and experienced warriors within the Brotherhood. Several bodies of warriors also existed outside of the Brotherhood structure. These included the Kara Oglanlar, the Dark Sons of Death, destroyer cadre warriors deployed in combat when the utter annihilation of the enemy was required, as well as for certain ritual roles in the wake of key campaigns. The Burgadine Sarvu, the Falcon's Claws, served as hunters and forward scouts, experts in survival and quiet elimination of enemy commanders. The Karash, less a formal order and more a temporary assembly of penitent or glory-seeking warriors, was assembled whenever the need for a diversionary or shock assault force arose. The Yuhan Solban, Omens of the Ill Fate, comprised almost every one of the limited number of dreadnoughts in service with the White Scars. The Aiko Glanlar was the Legion's expanded apothecarian. The White Scars also made use of so-called Weather Witches or Storm Seers, a cohort of battle psychers which was maintained even after the Edict of Nicaea. The Primarch, Jakatai Khan. Jakatai Khan, the Warhawk, was reared upon the wild planet of Chagorus, a wilderness of sweeping plains, forests, and mountains. Its tribes fought constantly, though all would ultimately submit to the might of the Khan of Khans, as Jakatai came to be known. When the Emperor came to Chagorus and granted Jakatai domination over the 5th Legion, he was still possessed of a mane born of vast wilderness, and despite having already mastered the strategies of conquest, Jakatai Khan was unfamiliar with the advanced technologies of the Imperium. Nonetheless, the Khan shaped his legionaries as he would the plains warriors of his home, testing his new sons in bloody trials and grueling contests of skills and strength. The Great Khan gave his disparate sons more than honor scars. He also introduced a united cultural identity in the Chagorian mold. He encouraged his legionaries to take pleasure in their duty and to study the noble pursuits, as they were known on Chagorus, such arts as calligraphy, hunting, and the telling of ancient tales. He made the ways of Chagorus the truth of his legion, a strange blend of practicality and superstition that was ill at ease with the strict tenets of the imperial truth. Jakatai's refusal in later years to amend the practices and outlook of his legion to more closely fit the imperial truth was yet another source of conflict between the Great Khan and some of his brothers, notably zealous Lorgar and overbearing Gilliman. In every battle in which he fought, Jakatai led the assault. He was ever to be found where the fighting was most intense. It was to Jakatai, to each other, that each White Scar was bound, not to the distant dream of the Imperium or any one of its worlds, but only to the Khan of Khans and the savage joy he took in war and in life. This has been the White Scars of the Great Crusade. Thank you for watching.